Thank you for joining us for this installment of Parish and Community. We frequently do interviews with members of our parish and our wider community. And our guest today is Dale Auffenberg, a Belize 2020 committee member. To start, Dale, could you tell us a little bit about what Belize 2020 is and what the organization does?
Sure. So I would guess about 10 years ago, before I was involved, there were a group of St. Louisans who are very generous and very loyal to the Jesuit province. And they decided that they wanted to do some work in a third world country. And because the Jesuits are very involved in Belize and it's English speaking, it seemed like kind of a perfect match. And so it's kind of a collaboration of generous St. Louisans, and now it's actually expanded to some other cities, other people involved, and St. Louis University, and then the people, the priests, and their support people in Belize. Originally, we were pretty much just in Belize City, and Father Matt Rule was kind of the point person there. And then about 3 years ago, he actually moved to Punta Gorda, where he is now the pastor at St. Martin de Porres. But because we already had a lot of programs up and running in Belize City, we now kind of try to support the missions in both of those parishes. Both of the parishes have schools, well, pre-COVID and hopefully soon, of over 700 children.
Wow.
And so a lot of our work is involved in helping them. One of the first things that happened back in probably about 2014 is some social work students from St. Louis U went and did an assessment of the children at the school and found that close to 70% of them suffered from PTSD because there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of violence. As the US border got tougher and tougher, a lot of the drug cartels started soliciting some of the boys in the school to drug run out to what they call them keys instead of islands, but there's hundreds of islands off the coast of Belize. And so they would solicit them to take the drugs out there, and then the cartels would pick them up and then bring them by boat to the US or wherever. But as we all know, dealing with the cartels oftentimes can be a very violent thing. And so those kids have seen a lot of violence in their life. So one of the first things that the generous benefactors did is to start a program called Project Heal, and it's an acronym, but it actually is a counseling, some parenting classes, some assistance with the kids in the schools, just in terms of trying to support them to stay in school by paying some of their fees and scholarships and that kind of thing.
And then what are some of the most tangible indicators of success that you've seen during your time in Belize and helping at these schools?
Well, one of the first things that we did is we built a parish center, which was a huge thing for the kids because a lot of the kids just kind of roamed the streets, and then they could set up basketball leagues and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That was a big help. And as I said, these programs, out of Project Heal came another one called ETBO, which helped the children buy uniforms and pay for them to do their fees and things to apply to high schools, and just all the support. Unfortunately, COVID did a number on a lot of the programs. I don't know how much you know about Belize, but travel and tourism is one of their main industries. And so obviously with the shutdown, a lot of people were food insecure almost immediately because everything with travel shut down. And then also they only have 5 ventilators in the whole country. And so, needless to say, COVID was a real concern of the government. And so during COVID, one of the first things that we did is we worked with the parishes, both in Punta Gorda and Belize City, and we solicited funds from our generous donors, And we were able to send enough money that we could provide food vouchers for over 1,000 people a week for the first 2 years of COVID. Now, recently, last month, we were finally able to return, and there's nothing like firsthand, face-to-face. Some of the professors from St. Louis U came with us, particularly education professors and medical people, because there is a health clinic in Punta Gorda. And so we focus primarily on that. And so we're really excited now because of COVID, because, of things like Zoom, we have a lot of plans to do a lot of training with the teachers. And Gary Ritter, who's the dean of St. Louis Youth Law School, has just been very proactive in terms of putting together initiatives and working with the people in Belize to try and help them in whatever ways that we can. And so we're really excited after returning from there. We had meetings both in Belize City and in Punta Gorda. And I want to shift focus a little bit to Punta Gorda now, because that more directly impacts the college church. So even though Belize 2020 is about 10 years old, I want to say about 4 years ago, shortly before COVID, the college church used to have a sister parish in Guatemala, and they decided for various reasons to switch their sister parish to the parish St. Martin de Porres in Punta Gorda. And one of their initiatives, and it's a little bit of a different model, is to provide scholarships for the children coming out of out of grade school to go to high school. And Punta Gorda is a very different thing than Belize City. Rather than being, violent and having, a lot of the impact of the drugs, it's much more the Mayan villages. And so there's 20 some different villages and village churches and schools that the main parish at St. Peter Claver serves. And so all of those kids come to Punta Gorda for school. And then there are 3 high schools in the area. And so about 30 families in the college church have agreed to pay high school tuition for those students. And those families are pretty much subsistence farmers. And so this, even though in comparison to US dollars, it's only $250 a year, and all of them have pretty well committed the $1,000 for 4 years of high school, these kids would not be able to go to school if it wasn't for the support of the families at the college church. And I was able to meet, and several of us met with the woman who runs that program, and she could not have been more grateful and more emphatic about the fact that the support of the parishioners at the college church makes a difference of some of these kids getting a high school education or just having to quit school after 8th grade. Another thing that's really exciting is that there's also a Jesuit, what was a junior college, and has just been authorized to become a 4-year college. And one of the first things that they are going to do is to start a nursing program. And so they are hoping, again, to solicit some scholarships that after these girls go to 2 years of junior college, then they will go into this nursing program. And if we can help them raise scholarship money, I shouldn't say just girls and boys, that they, if they commit to going back to their villages for a certain number of years, they're hoping, that we can help and provide 2 years of tuition money to help them get trained. And they are working actually in collaboration with the nursing program at Boston College to get that up and running. So it's a really exciting time to be involved. As I said earlier, COVID really did a number on a lot of the things that we've been working on and a lot of the momentum. But as a result of our visit, and actually next week, 3 of our colleagues, the woman who runs Project Heal, the assistant to the pastor in Belize City and Father Brian Christopher, who's the superior of all of the works, are all coming to St. Louis because we're having, for the first time since COVID, our first fundraiser, which is a trivia night at St. Louis U High next Saturday evening. So if anybody, I think the trivia night has been advertised in the bulletin.
It has.
And so we'd love all the support that we can get, because the one thing about Belize is a dollar goes a long, long way. I mean, it truly is a third world country. One other thing I want to say is that we really are very intentional about not going down there and saying, we think you need to do this or you need to do that. We really collaborate with them. We really ask them, what do you think that you need? And it's been a really great relationship, and they are so very grateful for the help that the St. Louis community, and particularly the College Church, has been able to provide.
Yeah, it's great to hear that those efforts have been so impactful, just building futures for these kids. Like you said, you have the ability to give these kids scholarships and incentives to get a college education, or help continue them get through school in these areas where otherwise they might not have been able to do that. And then I just wanted to ask a little bit about the committee itself, what it looks like, because I know you mentioned there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of different representatives from Jesuit orders or St. Louis University, and then there are other universities. I know you mentioned Boston College involved. So how does that look like, trying to bring all of these people together for a common goal?
Well, so it's probably important to understand that I kind of sit on two different committees in St. Louis. I and another gentleman, Mark Labarge, are the co-chairs of Belize 2020. And that is made up of probably about 15 to 20 St. Louisans who, for the most part, have been involved almost from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And, we work on education initiatives. We work on, well, in the early days, we worked on building initiatives, because one of the first projects was to help build this parish hall, and then healthcare, because, as I said, there is a clinic that St. Louis U staffs to some degree in Punta Gorda. And so those are kind of the initiatives that we sort of focus on now. And then, because of my involvement there, when the College Church decided to switch their sister city from Guatemala to Punta Gorda, some of the people on that committee knew that I was involved. And so I don't have time to be really involved in the College Church sister parish committee, but I try to sit in on all their meetings, just because I can update them, a lot more in terms of what is going on. Unfortunately, none of them were able to come with us to Belize, and so I met with them and brought back a folder of the sheets from every student that's sponsored by a College Church family. The woman, Miss Olive, who runs that program, had them write a letter in terms of, what they're studying, how they're progressing, and then, of course, a thank you note for the support that they get. So, and then just friends of people have, like, there's a wonderful couple that lives in Wisconsin, and another couple who lives in Florida, who are friends of the priests, and they have wanted to be supportive. And so, because we sort of have this program up and running, they've sort of tag teamed on with us. And, Zoom has made it more possible. Before COVID, we never would have thought that we would be able to, incorporate those people in our meetings. But we do have meetings at St. Louis U, and they're a hybrid of people in the room. And then now we do Zoom in our colleagues in Belize for our meetings, which is a huge help. That's a big way that we are able. One of the things I'll say is, when COVID hit, besides the food vouchers, we decided to host a prayer service every 2 weeks. And that was a huge success. We got, in the early days, like 60 people, about 30 people from St. Louis and other cities, and then about 30 parishioners from the 2 parishes in Belize. And that was a great collaboration because we would always start by asking, how is COVID? And so it was really interesting to hear how COVID was impacting them. It was bad here, of course, but it was really serious there. As I said, they were food insecure. And so that really helped to establish really good relationships. We really do treasure our friendships with our colleagues and the people there. So none of us would have hoped for COVID, but there are a few benefits that now with Zoom, and other social media things, we're able to be a lot more effective and a lot more communicative than we ever thought we would be before COVID.
Mm-hmm. To kind of wrap up with a personal question, is there a particular holy man or woman that you find has inspired you in your life?
Well, there have been a lot in my life. A lot of people, but I would say recently, I am very inspired by the priests that are in Belize. It's not an easy place to be. It's hot, and the people are lovely and wonderful, but it's a very different environment from being in St. Louis or Chicago or New Orleans or something. Matter of fact, kind of a cute story, as I was talking to Dan Finucane, whose parents are members of the college church, when we were in Punta Gorda, and he was telling me that he, as a young scholastic, he came back after his first year, and he works in a prison ministry in Belize City, and he was talking to his fellow classmates about the struggles of being a scholastic teaching in an all-boys Jesuit school. And he said, I came to realize, Mrs. Auffenberg, that what I was doing working with prisoners in Belize City was a tough assignment. And he said, and here's a 20-something-year-old, and he's there for 3 years. And all of them, they are such dedicated and passionate people, and they truly are the hands and feet of our Lord. And so it's hard not to be inspired by, the Father Brian's and the Father Andres and Matt Roll and Sam Page and the many priests and scholastics that we work with down there. So, yeah.
I think that's about all the questions I have. So it was great to talk to you a little bit about what Belize 2020 is and your role within the organization. And it's definitely a meaningful segment. So thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity. And I just want to take a second to once again thank the parishioners of the college church, because they really do make a difference with what they do down there. So thank you to them too, and thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you for your time, Dale.
Okay. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.